What is up, you muffin munching muggles? Welcome to Fiction and Reality. The final episode of Dispatch has recently been released, and so bid that giddy rumbling in your balls goodbye. Sit back and crunch on some nuts and curb your inner blonde blazer propaganda, because it's time to evaluate the thematic premise of Dispatch. Every story has a message, some thematic takeaway that you may have to rummage around to look for, especially in a satirical heavy game like Dispatch, which holds no qualms when it comes to people whipping their dicks out on screen, down in dirty dialogue.
Wasn't talking to you, bitch. Which weak-ass superhero team did you come from? Fucking Geek Squad?
Doesn't matter where I'm from, Cardi C.
In rom-com stuffing as plump as a dog named Beef.
Oh, who's this, huh? Who's the little guy?
We get into some dense thematic elements within the world of Dispatch, the hero's fall from grace being one amongst many that we're first introduced to. The first scene we're met with in Dispatch shows Robert, or Mecha Man, interrogating a villain in hopes of getting him to squill the location of Stroud, the man who killed his father. By digging into his Batman Duffy and drawing out one of his special mouse tools, Toxic spills out Stroud's location in order to spare his life. Dispatch tackles revenge through Mecha Man's fall from grace, highlighting the fact that corrosive consequences can emerge through one's blind pursuit of revenge. Moreover, Dispatch suggests that revenge requires a method of sacrifice. For example, having to spar with a naked man who oozes acid out of every orifice of his body. But seriously, consequences are a result of misusing your potential for conceited purposes in the world of Dispatch. Robert proceeded to the still mill where he took acidic backshots and got absolutely brain blasted. The irresistible desire to restore honor to his father by taking out Stroud called this man to take his Gundam mech into a 20v1. Yes, a 20v1. And while I can say he put up a fight of some kind, he was ultimately placed under the hellstorm of lasers and missiles, which absolutely shredded the shield levels of his Mecha Man suit. And just when it seemed as if he was going to narrowly escape this fiasco, right, the bomb exploded and sent his Mecha Man suit crashing into the terrain. And we all know who planted the bomb. Oh, the consequences of our blind fury. It's clear that Dispatch's definition of what it means to be a hero means staying true to the qualities of restraint and not pushing malfeasance into society to satisfy the thirst of selfish desire, which Robert's one-man pursuit of pursuing Stroud sort of mirrors. The consistent overarching message is that there are consequences in taking actions solely for one's benefit, and when leaving the garden of society at large, to shrivel in the periphery. For Robert, that selfish pursuit resulted in irreparable damage to the Mecha Man suit, and the source that gives birth to its power being stolen, the Astral Pulse. He's then made to go before the world and announce his temporary hiatus as Mecha Man, as well as face the fact that he put the suit at risk to pursue revenge, and that the suit was critically damaged in a poorly executed venture that did not completely have the public interest in mind at the time. He essentially got baited into a trap. Also, can we talk about this guy for a minute? Because my God, was his question out of pocket? What was that bro said? He said, is your father or grandfather rolling in their grave? He said something insane. And I do admit, I did have to lay my hands on that boomer for speaking on the bloodline like that. Absolutely reprehensible. Mecha Man caught himself trying to stop a band of thugs from loading cargo and unfortunately forgot that he didn't have any superpowers. Luckily, this is when his muscle mommy flies in to save the day and the blonde blazer propaganda begins. Don't attack me. Don't attack me. We can all be friends here, but not over steak dinners. Dispatch tries to get us to understand the concept of rising phoenixes, redemption, and being reborn from a crumbling, more incomplete or eroded version of one's former self. Robert put everything he had into Mecha Man, even to the point of financially draining his pockets. Mecha Man's golden legacy essentially went up in smoke, billowing in a plume of flames, leaving Robert to revitalize that legacy from the ashes. For Robert, that came in the form of SDN, an opportunity offered to him by Blonde Blazer after he went in for some fun time loving, an agency which agreed to hire him to lead the Phoenix program, a band of misfit villains trying to turn hero, which initially appeared to cause more trouble than it was worth, and on the surface seemed impossible to sort of reconcile. In exchange, the SDN agreed to help repair his Mecha Man suit, which ended up not turning out so well. There was, however, some light at the end of the tunnel as it reshaped Robert's perspective of what it meant to be a hero, as he was sort of relegated to supporting a group of villains that all but resembled the qualities of the hero archetype while still striving to keep the city from devolving into turmoil, chaos, mayhem, to compensate for his absence as Mecha Man and repay the city in kind some way. Throughout the process, some of these villains begin to sort of adopt more hero-esque traits, though they still maintain their same rebellious sort of personalities. You make do with what you're given, and Dispatch illustrates how to withstand a fall from grace by embracing the conditions of life as they are. Succumbing to a pursuit of selfish desires afflicts the quality of relationships when others are sacrificed to pursue them. Robert learns this from his failed blind pursuit of Stroud, the man who killed his father, and set him up to lose the astral pulse. Being selfish and forcing the world through your own isolated sort of windows of subjectivities expands the plane for consequences to grow exponentially. In the canon storyline, the only canon storyline, Robert falls in love with Invisigirl, aka Invisibitch. Due to the bolster strength of her connection with Robert, Invisigirl ultimately ends up placing Robert's dreams over the welfare of the Z-Team by embarking on a solo mission upon tracking and locating the Astral Pulse's location. And though she was kicking some ass, Mr. Predictor over here activated his standard and proceeded to lay some belt to ass. Invisigirl, wanting to preserve Robert's affection and maybe even driven by the guilt of having placed a bomb on the back of his Mecha Man suit, destroying it, almost died in search of the Astral Pulse and would have croaked to her asthma if not for Chase cutting his lifespan to save her from Stroud's compound, leaving Chase himself airing out on the brink of death and decreasing team morale around Invisigirl. I think there's a direct mirror drawn between Invisigirl and sort of Robert, between her choice to sort of infiltrate this base and prioritize Robert over Z-Team and Robert's choice to pursue Stroud out of spite. Of course, absent of a scheme to overtake him. Not that Invisigirl had a plan either, all while remaining ignorant of how the loss of the Mecha Man suit would affect the city as a whole. The aftermath of both of their choices comes in the form of consequences birthed from their very selfish apparatus that paved the path for them to fester in the first place. There awaits the capacity for chaos to wreak mayhem, diffusely when choices are bred from isolated and selfish desire. The immediate risk is losing trust from those who forge bonds with you if those choices are made to their detriment. Even if indirectly, rebuilding that connection and reestablishing that bond then becomes the sole antidote and helping one climb atop the mantle of that pillar of prestige once more. That cure for Invisigirl was her confession to Robert about the truth of what happened the day that he lost his Mecha Man suit, revealing that her bomb demecha'd the man. Womp womp. Losing one's destiny. Dispatch delves into the framework of one sculpting their own destiny and life being shaped by the individual's choices and free will, not fate. Free will triumph over projections of blind faith, which we see sort of projected in Invisigirl's transformation from villain to hero, and overall the Z-Team's growing sense of camaraderie, which was a transformation in its own right as well. There's a revolving sense of, how you say, hopelessness looming around the Z-Team's capacity to become something of a productive catalyst in society. Sure, there are a band of miscreants, some reforming from prison, others venturing toward the superhero dispatch network of their own accord in hopes of changing their lives for the better. All of them sort of lack respect.
So, you two fuck or what?
No professional lines were crossed.
All right. So just like grinding, clothes on stuff.
There is a strictured band of selfishness overarching the Z-Team, a band that constricts ever so tightly when they are made aware that someone from the team will be cut to essentially establish a high standard and make them aware that their standing in the SDN is not guaranteed unless they reflect the effort and discipline required. Dispatch rebukes the notion that labels or destiny holistically and infinitely define a person. Throughout the story, we are met with the importance of escaping societal labels through Invisigirl's journey. It's the question of free will versus destiny. When one has a long-standing label shunted upon them, it's not uncommon for them to believe that they are inseparable from that alias, and so they engage in actions that are befitting of that established label, all while ignorant of their own ability to exercise their own free will and escape that malicious label through targeted and methodical choices. With the score coming down to the wire, the Z-Team, solely driven by selfish desire to procure their spot at the SDN, begin to sabotage the dispatch alerts, thus leading to an overall downgrade in the Z-Team's performance and cohesiveness. Invisigirl, more than others, repeatedly ignores orders from Robert or Robertson and ends up scuffling with lightning struck at Granny's Donuts, a bout that ended in Granny being double caked up on a Thursday afternoon.
What you doing out here with all this ass? Double cheeked up on a Thursday afternoon, hella ass, the sun is still out, my nigga.
We've also got the situation with Invisigirl letting Lightning Struck escape again by engaging Malevola in order to preserve her spot on the Z-Team, thus leading to more property destruction and ultimately a conference for the entire Z-Team at large. We come to the scene where Invisigirl brings up fate and destiny, believing that her power to turn invisible locks her into the role of thievery, deceptiveness, and qualities of a villain. This scene illustrates a mindset that is reflected across many divisions of culture, a longing to escape with free will, which can't be accomplished by blindly following a preemptive destiny that's sculpted by superficial associations and affiliations, escaping sort of a malignant canvas that one might be painted into by society. The mantra resounding within the world of dispatch is this: you have the free will to make your own destiny. Invisigirl ultimately saves her spot on the Z team through listening to Robert's advice and by not letting her powers and prior affiliation with villainy shape the choices that she makes for her future or present. Through Invisigirl, we find that the onus is on the individual to make choices befitting the path of destiny they want to pursue. Dispatch suggests the people who avoid letting superficial characterizations, past pitfalls, or preconceived notions govern their actions are more liable to become more of what they truly are, and depending on the choices, whether selfless or selfish, enlighten or darken whatever path of life they see fit to pursue. Coop in my playthrough gets ejected from the Z team, and after throwing a couple of Chef Ramsay knives at Robert, storms out. I'm sorry, but it was not a hard choice to make. Who would want to get rid of the moist critical bat boy and all his astute Harvard-grade intelligence? Being cut from the team unfortunately leads Coop to embrace the path of villainy once more, but just as the principal bell of Dispatch tolls, that was her choice to pursue this track of destiny. We later see her return with Stroud in the Red Ring, dealing catastrophic damage to the city while making their way to retrieve the Astropulse. This is one major example illustrating that a divergence in choice exists, meaning the ability to choose one's fate is a matter of free will, though the environment, of course, can have an extreme influence on the decision that the individual ultimately decides to make. Invisigirl in the True Hero storyline sincerely cast away the core of her malicious evil past while maintaining some of her innate rebellious qualities. This was driven by her experience with the Z-Team and yearning for some sense of belonging with Robert, which ultimately enticed her to betray Stroud and the rest of the Red Ring at the end of the story and obtain a somewhat complete picture of what she was looking for in the end. When Robert chooses not to cut Vizzy despite her rogue actions, putting Chase in the ICU and dealing a crushing blow to the Z-Team's morale, all to the point of most of them wanting her out, it keeps her loyalty grounded with the SDN versus Stroud, gives her a place where she belongs, where someone is waiting for her and wants her to return. By measuring up Invisigirl's actions and outcomes of the present and not making decisions predicated on the actions and outcomes of her past, even once revealed, Robert remains consistent in not allowing preemptive destiny to shape his relationships or override his faith in his comrades. This is exactly why we see Vizzy return at the climax of Robert and Stroud's fight and go so far as to even take a bullet for him. Fate and free will are all about choices and consequences in the world of Dispatch, choosing free will over fate and preemptive destiny, and refusing to blindly cast judgment over surface level sort of caricatures leads to more favorable outcomes and stronger relationships amongst teammates. What does it mean to be a hero in Dispatch? It takes a lot to recuse yourself from acting on vengeance, especially when it details the life of a loved one being taken. Such extremes lead to the restraint of a hero being tested and the resilience of that hero being defined. So what does it mean to be a hero in Dispatch? Dispatch evaluates one of the core elements that encompasses a hero through Robert's bout with vengeance, specifically his struggle to repress a primitive killer instinct that emerges when Stroud, the villain who killed his father, wreaks havoc through the city with the Red Ring following his escape from prison. We can also find the meaning of a hero within the transformation of Z-Team's misfit band of degenerates into an imperfect family whose foundation hinges on the axle of both trust and sacrifice. I would say that the transformative factor between a hero and villain in the world of Dispatch is a raw and unrelenting selflessness and having the courage to make a sacrifice for either your loved one or the betterment of the populace at large, solely for the sake of protecting them. As we see initially, there is absolutely no sense of regard for the city or camaraderie shared between the members of the Z-Team, aside from roasting Robert, that is. And this rift only fissures deeper when they are placed in competition with one another, thus choosing to sacrifice the vitality of society to secure their own positions. Throughout the episodes, minding the ripples and bumps, where Flambe finds out Roberto was the man who cut his fingers off and burned his eyebrows away, and Blonde Blazer finds out who ate her spaghetti, there's some sort of transformation here. There are bonds that emerge from the shared struggle of the Z-Teamers while they striving to be meaningful members of society and redeeming themselves from their past crime-riddled lives. Being a hero in the world of Dispatch comes down to using your potential to ensure the welfare of its citizens, protecting them from villains and protecting the ones you love from danger. And we see this on full display with Z-Team during their volatile fight at the villain bar. Whether it means snapping some disabled guy's arms into or punching a couple of dudes in the dick, if that potential is being used to protect a kinship and good faith and ward off malfeasance, then it meshes into the canvas of heroism. The same phenomenon is reflected in the final battle between Z-Team, the SDN, and Stroud's Red Ring, where once again Punch-Up is seen doing what he does best and cracking some nuts. But aside from all the hammy-pamby, we see the team acting in unison to achieve one common goal, which is to stop Stroud from destroying the city, while also simultaneously sacrificing their own welfare to protect their comrades. Even Robert, having been asked what actions he'd take against Stroud if he apprehended him, in the true hero storyline takes actions paralleling those of a hero by showing mass restraint and mastery over his anger, deciding to spare Stroud despite losing his father because of the villain's power-hungry conquest. Ultimately, that is the heartbeat of Dispatch, that heroes aren't defined by their gifts, but how they use their gifts, by the sacrifices they're willing to make and people they refuse to abandon, even when vices attempt to call them against their better judgment. Please let me know in the comments below what you think of Dispatch and your experience playing the game. What do you think of the story? Also, I have a gaming channel just over here called Just Fiction, and I'll be uploading my Dispatch gameplay and Let's Play all through the week. Find it in the description below. If you want more analysis of your favorite characters or fictional worlds, go ahead and smash that like button below. Turn on that notification bell and subscribe for more. This channel is ever evolving and will continue to grow to appeal to the audience at large. Remember, the direction of progress is forward and it's only up from here. I will leave a link to my socials in the description below. I need to sort of tally up and dilly up my Discord. And with that, remember, if ever you are lost in a forest of words, strip your mind from fantasy and look to the window of the world, and there your mind will run free.